Time now to take a look at what's making news around the world in the international papers. Diptyka Laurent has been scouring through them for us. Diptyka, I imagine a lot of reactions from the Middle East press after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's revelations about Iran.
That's right. Let's start with the Jerusalem Post, a conservative Israeli paper. Iran lied. That's the image from their front page. Today, they're leading, of course, with Benjamin Netanyahu's big reveal yesterday about Iran's secret nuclear program. A success for the history books, mind-blowing. These are just some of the terms that the paper uses to describe Netanyahu's claims and what they say are Mossad's achievements in procuring more than 100,000 Iranian nuclear files. The Jerusalem Post calls it definitive proof that Iran lied in the past about continuing its nuclear activities. And they say it's a smoking gun to, if ever there needed to be one, to end the Iran nuclear deal. From the Arab News, the Saudi-based paper, they also are talking about it on their front page. Iran's secret plans revealed. They call it Tehran's deception.
What are the Iranian papers saying?
Well, the Iranian papers have sort of glossed over it all. The Iran Daily is not really focusing on Netanyahu's comments as such. Instead, it is looking at Mike Pompeo's visit to Saudi Arabia, recent visit. Now, the U.S. Secretary of State has just wrapped up a 4-day, 4-nation tour of the Middle East, Eve. And during that visit, he reiterated the U.S.'s belief, first of all, that Israel has the right to defend itself. And in Saudi Arabia in particular, he called on Gulf countries to unite against Iran. Well, the Iran Daily re-quotes Ayatollah Khamenei, who essentially accused the U.S. of provoking regional tension, trying to get other countries to gang up on Iran, and warned that any country seeking to challenge Iran would be defeated. Those are the words of the Ayatollah. Now, there is one interesting article from the Israeli paper, the more moderate paper Haaretz, that seems to temper Netanyahu's speech. They say beyond his, quote, TED Talk choreography and technological gimmicks, Netanyahu didn't provide that smoking gun. And they say if lies were a reason to disqualify leaders, surely Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu would be candidates for dismissal, no less at least than Ayatollah Khamenei and Hassan Rouhani.
Well, let's move on now and tell me, are there reactions to that horrific, deadly double suicide attack in Afghanistan yesterday that killed dozens of people?
And among them, Eve, of course, numerous journalists, 9, I believe, or 10 journalists at least. The 2-stage bomb attack in downtown Kabul in Afghanistan targeted civilians first, and then as rescue workers came to the scene to help the victims, the second blast went off. The attack has been claimed by the Islamic State group and has killed, as you said, dozens of people. Among those victims, 9 journalists. In fact, the New York Times note said it was the deadliest day for journalists in Afghanistan since at least 2002. And from the Afghan press, the Afghanistan Times notes that as security threats increase in the country, so too does the media coverage of attacks. Their editorial strikes a tone today that's both defiant but also sickened by the attack. They say, don't mess with the media. That's a warning to the Islamic State group. I quote, the media is much more stronger than your weapons and senseless terror. The most powerful weapon on earth is the media.
Okay, well, indeed, The Atlantic has chosen to focus on one of those journalists killed. It's Shah Marais, a photographer with Agence France Presse.
Well, they're actually honoring his work. In particular, photographer Shah Marais was Kabul bureau chief for Agence France Presse, or AFP. The Atlantic has reprinted just some of his pictures, noting that he leaves behind him a family of 6 kids, including a newborn. In 2016, Marais wrote an essay about what it was like living in Afghanistan, reporting in Afghanistan for so many years, and particularly after the U.S. pulled its troops out of the country. That link you can find on the Atlantic's website.
Okay. Meanwhile, Diptyka, in Australia, there is another debate over euthanasia after an esteemed scientist has announced that he's going to travel to Switzerland in order to end his life.
Well, it's getting a lot of steam in Australia, mainly because this man, this esteemed professor, his name is David Goodall, he's Australia's oldest scientist, feels the need to travel so far from his home country to die in peace. Now, he recently turned 104 and said he's ready to die. He said said he's not terminally ill, but he regrets getting to this age. He feels like his body is starting to sort of abandon him, and now he's ready to die. An NGO called Exit International says it's raised 17,000 Australian dollars to help Goodall travel to Switzerland this month, where he plans to be euthanized voluntarily. The extent to which he wants to die has, of course, raised the issue of legalizing euthanasia in Australia.
That was the scientist that worked until 102, no? And then there was controversy when he was pushed out of office?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
that's
interesting man. Finally, from you, Diptika, Britain has held its first ever flat Earth convention. Yes, you heard me. Flat Earth. Well, so the Earth is flat. We've got it all wrong.
That's right. At least according to the flat earthers, as they're called. The international version of the summit already exists, but in the UK, it was the first time that they had a British flat Earth convention that wrapped up this weekend. Basically, as you can guess, it's a summit for people who think the Earth is flat. They gathered at a hotel in Birmingham to discuss, among other things, the shape of the Earth, or at least what they think the shape is. The Daily Mail reports that the leading theory is that the Earth is disc-shaped, while others say it could be diamond-shaped, and some argue that Earth has a domed roof. I'm not quite sure where they think that domed roof is. Among other strange theories, some people believe that Earth is actually stationary in space rather than orbiting the sun. All this despite concrete proof that from NASA that the Earth is indeed round.
I have to say, it would be a fascinating conference to hear all those theories and the logic backing them up, or the non-logic backing them up. Diptika Laurent, thanks a lot for that review of the international papers.